Her Bentley broke down in the rain, mascara streaking like the storm clouds above. Emma Taylor, heiress to a fortune but bankrupt in spirit, stood on the side of a country road, designer heels sinking into mud. Until Jack Miller, a single father with calloused hands and a heart worn gentle by raising his daughter alone, pulled over to help. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed. Because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. She offered money. He offered kindness. This isn't just about an unexpected roadside rescue. It's about how sometimes getting lost is the only way to find where you truly belong. A story of second chances blooming in the most unexpected places, between the cracks of a humble mechanic's shop and a mansion built on empty promises. The rain fell in sheets across Oakridge County, the kind of summer downpour that turned dirt roads to mud and visibility to memory. Emma Taylor stood beside her stranded Bentley Continental, Italian leather pumps already ruined, silk blouse clinging to her shoulders as she stared helplessly at the plume of steam rising from under the hood. Her phone showed no service, not a single bar of reception to summon the premium roadside assistance her father insisted she maintain. 30 miles outside of civilization and this happens, she muttered, pushing soaked auburn hair from her forehead. Perfect timing. The road stretched empty in both directions, bordered by sprawling farmland and clusters of pine. Emma hadn't meant to take this route back from the lawyer's meeting, but the navigation system had suggested it as a scenic alternative to the highway. Scenic was one word for it. Desolate was another. 29 years of privileged existence hadn't prepared her for this moment. Stranded, alone, with nothing but a suitcase of designer clothes and a document that had just changed everything. She thought she knew about her life. The manila envelope sat on the passenger seat, its contents still sending aftershocks through her carefully constructed world. A pair of headlights appeared in the distance, cutting through the rain. Emma straightened, suddenly aware of her vulnerability. A woman alone on a deserted road. Her father's warnings about strangers echoed in her head. Still, what choice did she have? The approaching vehicle was not the sleek luxury car of someone from her social circle, nor was it the official vehicle of highway patrol. It was a weathered blue pickup truck, its paint chipped in places, but the engine sounding remarkably solid. It slowed as it approached, pulling to a stop several feet behind her Bentley. Emma reached into her purse, fingers closing around her pepper spray, just in case. The driver's door opened and a man stepped out. Tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair cropped short, and a face that spoke of days spent working under the sun. He wore a faded flannel shirt, with the sleeves rolled up, revealing forearms marked with the evidence of mechanical work, the kind of physical labor Emma had only ever observed from a distance. "Need some help?" he called over the rain, already moving toward her car without waiting for an answer. "It just stopped," Emma said, hating how helpless she sounded. "I think it's overheated or something." The man nodded, surveying the scene with practiced ease. "Mind if I take a look?" Emma gestured toward the hood, a wordless permission. She watched as he approached the car with confident strides, seemingly unbothered by the rain soaking through his clothes. He reached under the hood, found the latch, and propped it open in one fluid motion. "I'm Jack, by the way," he said, without looking up from his inspection. "Jack Miller." "Emma Taylor," she replied automatically, then immediately wondered if she should have used a fake name. Her family was well known in financial circles, their name emblazoned on buildings and charity galas. But Jack didn't react, his attention fully focused on her car's engine. "You've got a busted radiator hose," he announced after a minute of examination. "Pretty common in these luxury models, actually. They're not built for these country roads. Can you fix it?" Jack straightened up, wiping his hands on his jeans. "Not here. You'll need a replacement part. I've got a shop about 3 miles. Back that way. He pointed in the direction he'd come from. I can tow you there. Emma hesitated. Getting into a stranger's truck went against everything she'd been taught about personal safety. But standing in the rain beside a useless $100,000 car wasn't exactly a viable alternative. I can pay you, she said, reaching for her purse, whatever your rate is. Something flickered across Jack's face, a flash of what might have been annoyance or perhaps pride. Let's worry about that after we get you somewhere dry, all right? Before she could respond, a small voice called from the truck. Dad, is she okay? Emma hadn't noticed there was someone else in the vehicle. A girl, perhaps 8 or 9 years old, peered out from the passenger window, her expression curious and concerned. She's fine, Lily, Jack called back. Her car's broken down. We're going to help her out. The presence of the child changed everything. Emma's shoulders relaxed slightly. A father with his daughter seemed far less threatening than a man alone. That's my daughter, Jack explained, noticing Emma's expression. She helps out at the shop sometimes after school. You bring your daughter to work? The question slipped out before Emma could filter it. Jack's expression hardened slightly. I'm all she's got. The simple declaration hung between them, heavy with unspoken history. Emma looked away, suddenly ashamed of her assumption. The rain continued to fall around them, drumming on the metal hood of her Bentley. I appreciate the help, she said finally. I don't want to be a burden. Jack's expression softened. It's no burden. That's just what folks do out here. Help each other out. He reached back into the engine compartment to secure something, then closed the hood. Let me get the tow chains. Emma watched as he returned to his truck, exchanged a few words with his daughter, then retrieved heavy chains from the truck bed. His movements were efficient, practiced, a man who had done this many times before. There was something reassuring about his competence. Within minutes, he had secured the Bentley to his truck. You'll want to grab anything important from your car, he advised. Emma nodded, opening the passenger door to retrieve her purse, the manila envelope, and her small, overnight bag. The lawyer had suggested she pack essentials, just in case. She hadn't understood why at the time. You can ride with us, Jack said, gesturing to his truck. It'll be tight, but we'll manage. Emma approached the pickup, suddenly aware of how out of place she must look. Designer clothes soaked through, $500 shoes caked with mud, trying to climb into a 20-year-old truck. Jack opened the door for her, and she saw his daughter had already scooted to the middle of the bench seat to make room. Hi, the girl said, smiling with unguarded friendliness. I'm Lily. Emma, she replied, returning the smile despite herself. Thank you for making room for me. We rescue people all the time, Lily announced proudly as Emma settled into the passenger seat. Dad says it's good karma. Jack climbed into the driver's seat, casting a quick glance at his daughter. I say a lot of things. Doesn't make them all profound wisdom. But there was warmth in his voice, a gentle teasing that spoke of a deep bond. The truck's interior was surprisingly clean, if worn. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. A small charm hung from the rearview mirror, a delicate butterfly made from what looked like hand-painted wood. The dashboard held a photograph of a younger Lily, missing her front teeth, grinning widely. Put your seatbelt on, Jack reminded his daughter as he started the engine. The truck rumbled to life, its sound somehow reassuring in the storm. The drive was slow, the truck carefully navigating the wet roads with the Bentley in tow. Emma found herself stealing glances at father and daughter. They shared the same warm brown eyes and determined chin, though Lily's hair was lighter, pulled back in a practical ponytail secured with a bright yellow band. "You're pretty," Lily announced suddenly, studying Emma with unabashed curiosity. "You look like the ladies in the magazines." Emma wasn't sure how to respond. She was used to compliments, but they typically came from people wanting something from her. Access to her father, invitations to exclusive events, a mention in the society pages. "Thank you," she said simply. "I like your hairband. Yellow's a happy color." Lily beamed. "Dad says it matches my personality." Jack kept his eyes on the road, but a small smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. "Lily's our local sunshine," he said, "even when it's pouring outside." The conversation flowed more easily after that, with Lily asking earnest questions about Emma's car. Is it really worth more than our house? And her shoes. How do you walk in those without falling over? Jack remained quieter, focused, on driving, occasionally reminding his daughter not to be too nosy. "It's fine," Emma assured him. "It's refreshing, actually." The rain began to ease as they approached a small cluster of buildings that seemed to constitute the nearest town. Miller's Auto Repair read a modest sign on a single-story building with 3 garage bays. The place wasn't fancy, but it looked well-maintained, with fresh paint and clean windows despite its rural location. Jack pulled the truck around to the side of the building and carefully maneuvered Emma's Bentley into position. "Home sweet home," he announced, putting the truck in park. "You live here?" Emma asked before she could stop herself. "No," Jack chuckled, seeming more amused than offended. "We've got a place about a half-mile up the road, but we spend enough time here that it sometimes feels that way." They all climbed out of the truck, the air fresh with the scent of rain-washed earth. The storm had passed, leaving behind puddles that reflected the emerging evening sky. "I'll take a better look at your car now that we're here," Jack said, already moving toward the Bentley. "Lily, can you show Ms. Taylor where she can dry off?" "It's Emma, please," she corrected gently. Jack nodded, their eyes meeting briefly. "Emma." Lily took her role as host seriously, leading Emma into the small office attached to the garage. The space was modest but tidy, with a desk, a few chairs, and a coffee maker that had seen better days. A corkboard on the wall displayed children's drawings, service schedules, and a few photographs. "There's a bathroom back there," Lily pointed to a door in the corner. "Dad keeps extra towels in the cabinet. Sometimes customers have to wait while he fixes their cars, so he tries to make it nice." "That's thoughtful of him," Emma said, genuinely impressed by the consideration. The bathroom was small but spotless. Emma found the promised towels, plain but clean, and did her best to dry her hair and blot her clothes. The face that looked back at her from the mirror was a far cry from her usual polished appearance. Her carefully applied makeup had mostly washed away, and her hair fell in damp waves around her face. She looked younger, more vulnerable. When she emerged, Lily was waiting with a steaming mug. "I made you coffee. Dad says it fixes almost everything, except broken cars." "Thank you," Emma said, touched by the gesture. The mug was chipped at the rim, bearing the faded logo of a local high school. The coffee inside was stronger than she was used to, but the warmth was welcome. Through the office window, she could see Jack working on her car, his movements confident and practiced. He'd rolled the Bentley into one of the garage bays and was already examining the damage more thoroughly. "Your dad seems very good at his job," Emma commented. Lily nodded, her expression serious. "He's the best mechanic in 3 counties. That's what everyone says. He can fix anything." "Anything?" "Well," Lily considered, "he couldn't fix Mom. But that's because she didn't want to be fixed. She wanted to be somewhere else." The statement, delivered with such matter-of-fact simplicity, caught Emma off guard. "I'm sorry," she said softly. Lily shrugged, but there was a flicker of something old and sad in her young eyes. "It was a long time ago. I was 4. Dad says some people aren't meant to stay in one place. Mum was like that." Before Emma could respond, Jack appeared in the doorway, wiping his hands on a rag. "You were right about the radiator hose," he said, "but there's also an issue with the cooling system that caused it to rupture in the first place. I can get the parts, but it'll take a day or two to come in." Emma nodded, trying to process what this meant. A day or two stranded in a town she'd never heard of, with no hotel in sight. As if reading her thoughts, Jack continued, "There's a bed and breakfast about half a mile from here. The Wilsons run it. Good people. I can give you a ride there, once I close up here." "That would be very kind," Emma said. She glanced at her phone. Still no service. "Is there somewhere I can make a call? I should let someone know where I am." She'd been about to say her father, but that wasn't quite right anymore, was it? Not after what the lawyer had told her. "You can use our landline," Jack offered, gesturing to the phone on the desk. "Cell service out here is spotty at best, one of the charms of country living." He gave her a small smile before turning to his daughter. "Lily, why don't you start on your homework while I finish up with Miss Taylor's car?" Both Emma and Lily corrected simultaneously, then exchanged surprised smiles. Jack's eyes crinkled at the corners. "Right, Emma's car." He disappeared back into the garage, leaving Emma with a strange feeling she couldn't quite name. Lily settled at a small table in the corner, pulling out a math workbook from her backpack. Emma hesitated, then moved to the desk phone. Who should she call? Her father would be furious about the car, would probably send a private car service. Immediately, the thought should have been comforting, but instead it made her feel oddly resistant. She dialed her best friend Sophia instead. "Emma, is that you? Where are you calling from?" Sophia's voice came through clearly, concern evident. "My car broke down in the middle of nowhere," Emma explained, keeping her voice low. "I'm at an auto shop in a town called..." She glanced around for some indication. "Pine Creek," Lily supplied without looking up from her homework. "Pine Creek," Emma repeated. "The mechanic says it'll take a couple of days to fix." "Oh my God, are you okay? Do you need me to come get you? Does your father..." "No," Emma took a deep breath. "I'm fine. Actually, I think this might be good timing. After what happened at the lawyer's office today, I could use some time to think." There was a pause on the other end. "You found out, didn't you, about the trust conditions?" "Yes." The word came out barely above a whisper. 30 years old or marriage, those are the only ways I access my inheritance. Otherwise, it all goes to my father's foundation." Emma glanced toward Lily, but the girl appeared absorbed in her math problems. "He set me up, Sophia. All those introductions to suitable men? He was trying to push me into marriage so he wouldn't have to wait another year for me to turn 30. I'm so sorry, Em. What are you going to do?" Emma looked out the window at the small town beyond, at the mechanic who was working diligently on her car without any idea of who she was or what she was worth. "I don't know yet, but I'm not running back to him, not this time." After finishing her call, Emma sat quietly, watching as Lily worked through her multiplication tables with fierce concentration. The girl occasionally mouthed the numbers to herself, pencil gripped tightly in small fingers. "Do you need help?" Emma offered after a while. Lily looked up, surprised. "Can you do times tables?" The question, asked with genuine curiosity rather than sarcasm, made Emma smile. "I can. I used to be pretty good at math, actually." "Dad says math is important because numbers don't lie," Lily said, scooting her chair over to make room, "not like people sometimes do." Emma felt a twinge in her chest as she sat next to the girl. "Your dad sounds very wise." "He is," Lily agreed seriously, "but he's terrible at braiding hair." The next half hour passed peacefully as Emma helped Lily with her homework. There was something calming about multiplication tables and word problems, concrete challenges with definite answers, unlike the complicated mess her life had become. Jack returned as they were finishing the last problem. He paused in the doorway, something unreadable crossing his face as he watched them. "All done?" he asked, his voice gentler than before. Lily nodded proudly. "Emma knows fractions really well." "Is that so?" Jack's eyes met Emma's, a tentative warmth in them. "Well, that's more than I can say. Fractions were always my downfall. Mine too," Lily admitted with a giggle, "but Emma makes them make sense." Jack checked his watch. "It's getting late. I've done all I can with your car today, Emma. I've called about the parts. They should be here by Wednesday at the latest." "Thank you," Emma said, suddenly realizing how hungry and tired she was. The emotional toll of the day's revelations, followed by the breakdown and rescue, had drained her. "The B&B might be full with the county fair starting tomorrow," Jack said, seeming to hesitate. "If that's the case, well, we have a spare room. It's nothing fancy, but you're welcome to it." Emma stared at him, startled by the offer. "I couldn't impose like that." "It's no imposition," Jack assured her. "Like I said, it's what folks do around here." "Please say yes," Lily added eagerly. "I can show you my rock collection and my books, and Dad made stew this morning, and it's always better the second day." Emma looked between them. This father and daughter, who had already shown her more genuine kindness in a few hours than she'd experienced in months within her usual circles. Strangers who expected nothing from her. "If the B&B is full," she conceded, "then yes, thank you." The Wilsons' bed and breakfast turned out to be a charming Victorian house with a wraparound porch and flourishing garden. It also turned out to be completely booked, just as Jack had predicted. "Sorry, dear," Mrs. Wilson, a plump woman with silver hair and kind eyes, told them after checking her registry. "We've had reservations for the fair weekend for months. You might try over in Hartford, about 20 miles east." "It's all right," Emma said, ignoring the flutter of nervousness in her stomach. "Mr. Miller has kindly offered me his spare room." Mrs. Wilson's eyebrows rose slightly as she glanced between them, but her smile remained warm. "Well, you're in good hands then. Jack Miller's one of the finest men in this county." They were back in the truck, with Lily chattering excitedly about showing Emma her bedroom and her pet goldfish named Spark. Emma found herself wondering what she had gotten herself into. Less than 12 hours ago, she had been in her father's attorney's office, learning that her life was not what she thought it was. Now she was heading to a stranger's home, in a town that probably wasn't even on most maps. Jack seemed to sense her unease. "We can still try Hartford if you'd prefer a hotel," he offered quietly, while Lily was distracted by a passing tractor. Emma shook her head. "No, it's fine. I appreciate your hospitality." She hesitated, then added, "I just realized I don't have anything with me except what's in my overnight bag." "But we can figure that out tomorrow," Jack assured her. "Pine Creek's not big, but we do have a general store that carries the basics." The Miller home turned out to be a modest 2-story farmhouse set back from the road, with a wide front porch, and shutters painted a cheerful blue. A massive oak tree dominated the front yard, its branches supporting a simple wooden swing. The place looked well cared for, if not fancy, a home that had witnessed both joy and hardship, bearing the marks of both with dignity. "It was my grandparents' place," Jack explained as he pulled into the gravel driveway. "Been in the family for 3 generations now." Emma tried to imagine growing up in one place for so long, having roots that deep. Her own childhood had been split between her father's Manhattan penthouse, the Hampton summer home, and a succession of elite boarding schools. "It's lovely," she said sincerely as they got out of the truck. Lily was already racing toward the front door. "I'll show you everything," she called back excitedly. Jack retrieved Emma's small overnight bag from the truck bed. "She doesn't get many visitors her own age," he said apologetically, "and women visitors are even rarer." "No girlfriends?" The question slipped out before Emma could stop it. Jack's expression closed slightly. Not much time for that. Between the shop and Lily. He didn't finish the sentence, but Emma understood. Single parenthood left little room for personal life. Inside, the house was comfortable rather than fashionable. Practical furniture, walls painted in warm colors, and family photographs chronicling Lily's growth from infancy to the present. A bookshelf in the living room held an eclectic mix of auto repair manuals, children's books, and what looked like classic literature. "The spare room is upstairs, first door on the right," Jack said, carrying her bag. "Bathrooms across the hall. Like I said, nothing fancy, but the sheets are clean." Emma followed him up the wooden staircase, noticing the careful way he avoided. A step that looked newer than the others. "Watch that third step," he warned. "I replaced it last month, but it still makes a hell of a noise. Sorry, a heck of a noise." The spare room was small but tidy, with a double bed covered in a handmade quilt, a simple dresser, and a window that overlooked the backyard. A shelf held a few knickknacks. Seashells, a small model car, a jewelry box with a ballerina that no longer spun. "This was my sister's room," Jack explained. "She's in Seattle now with her husband. They visit at Christmas." "It's perfect," Emma said, meaning it. The room felt lived in, loved, unlike the impersonal luxury of hotel suites she was accustomed to. Jack set her bag down and lingered in the doorway, seemingly uncertain. "Dinner in about 30 minutes? Nothing special, just beef stew and biscuits." "That sounds wonderful." After he left, Emma sat on the edge of the bed, the events of the day finally catching up with her. She opened her overnight bag and removed the manila envelope, staring at it for a long moment before pulling out the documents inside. The trust agreement was written in dense legal language, but the core conditions were simple. Emma Taylor would not access her inheritance from her grandmother, the fortune that should have been her mother's before her untimely death, until either her 30th birthday or her wedding day, whichever came first. Until then, her father would continue as the trustee with all the control that position entailed. For years, Emma had lived on the allowance her father provided, working at his company's charitable foundation in a position that now seemed obviously designed to keep her occupied rather than independent. She had dated the men he subtly pushed her way, attended the events he deemed important, lived in the apartment he owned. She had never questioned why he seemed so eager for her to marry the right sort of man. Now she understood. If she married, the trust would release its funds immediately. And with the right husband, one chosen by her father, the money would effectively remain under his influence. Emma tucked the papers away as she heard Lily's footsteps racing down the hall. "Emma! Dad says dinner's almost ready and I can show you Spark before we eat." The child's enthusiasm was impossible to resist. Emma followed her to a small room, decorated with solar system decals and stuffed animals. On a desk by the window sat a round fishbowl where a single orange goldfish swam lazy circles. "This is Spark," Lily announced proudly. "Dad got him for my birthday last year. He's very smart for a fish." "He's beautiful," Emma said, watching the fish's fins catch the light. "Why did you name him Spark?" "Because he reminds me of when Dad fixes cars and there's those little bright flashes of light," Lily explained. "Dad says those are sparks and they're dangerous, but they're also what makes things work again sometimes." From downstairs, Jack's voice called them to dinner. The kitchen was warm and smelled delicious, a rich, savory aroma that made Emma realize how long it had been since she'd eaten. The small round table was set with mismatched dishes that somehow looked right together. "Sit anywhere," Jack said, bringing a pot to the table. "We don't stand on ceremony here." Dinner was simple but delicious. The stew was hearty with chunks of beef, potatoes and carrots, and the biscuits were surprisingly light. Emma couldn't remember the last time she'd eaten food cooked by someone who wasn't a professional chef or caterer. "This is wonderful," she said after her first bite. Jack looked pleased but shrugged off the compliment. My grandmother's recipe, one of the few things I can cook reliably. Dad makes breakfast too, Lily added loyally. His pancakes are shaped like animals. The conversation flowed easily, with Lily doing most of the talking. About school, her friends, the treehouse Jack was building in the backyard. Emma found herself relaxing, drawn into their world despite the strangeness of her situation. So, Jack said finally, during a rare pause in his daughter's chatter, what brings you out to our neck of the woods? The main highway would have been a more direct route from the city. Emma hesitated, uncertain how much to share. I had a meeting with my father's lawyer in Hartford. Family business. The navigation system suggested this route as scenic. More scenic than you bargained for, I'm guessing, Jack said with a small smile. Yes, Emma agreed, returning the smile. Though I have to admit, breaking down here was fortunate in a way. Jack raised an eyebrow. Not many people would call a busted radiator fortunate. I needed some space to think, Emma admitted, and Pine Creek seems like a good place for that. Jack studied her for a moment, as if trying to read between her carefully chosen words. Well, you're welcome to stay as long as you need to get. Your thoughts in order. The car should be ready by Wednesday, but there's no rush. After dinner, Lily insisted on showing Emma the backyard, pointing out the half-finished treehouse, the vegetable garden, and the fire pit where they roasted marshmallows on summer evenings. Dad and I look at the stars out here, she explained, pointing upward. He knows all their names. The night sky above Pine Creek was unlike anything Emma had seen in years. A vast canvas of darkness pierced by countless pinpricks of light. In Manhattan, the stars were drowned out by the city's constant glow. Here, they seemed close enough to touch. It's beautiful, she whispered. Bedtime, Lily, Jack called from the back porch. School tomorrow. Lily groaned, but didn't argue. Good night, Emma, she said, giving her an impulsive hug before racing inside. Emma remained in the yard, gazing upward. She heard Jack's footsteps approach, but didn't look away from the stars. Amazing what you can see when there's no light pollution, he commented, standing beside her. Lily knows the major constellations. Now, she's got a good eye for patterns. She's a wonderful child, Emma said. You've done an amazing job with her. Jack was quiet for a moment. I do my best. It hasn't always been easy since her mother left. Left? Emma echoed softly. She decided small-town life wasn't for her, Jack said, his voice carefully neutral. Lily was 4. Jennifer packed her bags one Tuesday afternoon and said she needed to find herself. Last we heard, she was in California. Emma didn't know what to say. Her own mother had died when she was 3, a car accident that had left her with only the vaguest memories of gentle hands and a soft voice reading bedtime stories. I'm sorry, she offered finally. Don't be, Jack said. We're doing all right, Lily and me. They stood in comfortable silence for a while. The night, air cool against Emma's skin. For the first time since the lawyer's office, she felt her shoulders truly relax. Thank you, she said, for stopping today, for bringing me here. Jack turned to look at her, his expression thoughtful in the dim light from the kitchen window. Anyone would have stopped. No, Emma said with certainty. They wouldn't have. Later, as she lay in the unfamiliar bed with its handmade quilt and slightly lumpy pillow, Emma found herself thinking not about the trust or her father's manipulation, but about Jack Miller's steady hands as he worked on her car, and the way his eyes crinkled when he smiled at his daughter. She thought about Lily's uncomplicated kindness and the night sky filled with more stars than she could count. She thought about how, for the first time in years, no one expected anything from her except to be present for dinner and kind to a child who offered friendship without agenda. Emma pulled the quilt closer around her shoulders and listened to the unfamiliar sounds of a house settling for the night. so different from the constant hum of her high-rise apartment. A dog barked in the distance. Wind rustled through the oak tree outside her window. Somewhere downstairs, a clock chimed. 11. Tomorrow she would need to make decisions. She would need to call her father eventually, to confront the truth about the trust and his intentions. She would need to figure out what kind of life she wanted now that she understood the strings attached to the one she'd been living. But tonight, in this quiet room in a stranger's home, Emma Taylor, heiress to a fortune she couldn't access and daughter of a man who saw her as a pawn, closed her eyes and slept more peacefully than she had in years. Morning arrived with unfamiliar sounds, birdsong instead of traffic, wind rustling through leaves rather than the mechanical hum of central air. Emma woke disoriented, taking a moment to remember where she was, the spare bedroom of a mechanic's farmhouse, miles from the nearest luxury hotel. The digital clock on the bedside table read 6:42 a.m. In Manhattan, she would still be asleep, her blackout curtains keeping the morning at bay until her programmed alarm chimed at precisely 7:30. Here, sunlight streamed through the simple cotton curtains, painting warm patterns across the handmade quilt. Emma sat up, running her fingers through her tangled hair. Her silk pajamas, the only sleepwear she'd packed in her overnight bag, felt oddly formal against the rustic surroundings. The floorboards were cool beneath her feet as she made her way to the window. The view took her breath away. Morning. Mist hung low over rolling fields, the rising sun turning everything golden. A red-tailed hawk circled lazily overhead, riding thermal currents. In the distance, a tractor moved slowly across a neighboring farm, leaving neat rows in its wake. The sound of movement downstairs drew her attention. Glancing at the clock again, Emma realized most of the household was probably already awake. Working people, her father would have called them, with the faint condescension that colored so many of his observations. After a quick shower in the small but spotlessly clean bathroom across the hall, Emma faced her limited wardrobe options. The designer outfit from yesterday was still damp and mud-stained. Her overnight bag contained only a simple shift dress she'd packed for the meeting with the lawyer, hardly suitable for a day in the country. With resignation, she slipped it on, paired with the only other shoes she had, delicate ballet flats that would likely be ruined by day's end. The smell of coffee and something sweet guided her downstairs. In the kitchen, she found Jack at the stove, flipping what appeared to be pancakes while Lily sat at the table, a textbook open beside her breakfast plate. "Morning," Jack said without turning around. "Coffee's ready if you want some." "Good. Morning," Lily chirped, her smile revealing a missing front tooth Emma hadn't noticed yesterday. "Dad's making Tuesday pancakes." "Tuesday pancakes?" Emma asked, helping herself to coffee from the pot. The mug she chose was ceramic, painted, with what looked like a child's rendering of a sunflower. "Dad makes special pancakes for each day," Lily explained, as if this were common knowledge. "Monday is plain circles because Mondays are boring. Tuesday is animals. Wednesday is letters. Thursday is monsters. Friday is shapes. And weekends?" Emma asked, charmed by the ritual. "Whatever she wants," Jack answered, sliding a perfect turtle-shaped pancake onto Lily's waiting plate. "Weekend pancakes are earned by good behavior all week. And I'm always good," Lily declared, drowning her turtle in maple syrup. Jack raised an eyebrow but didn't contradict her. "Sleep okay?" he asked Emma. "Better than I have in months," she admitted. "Though I didn't mean to sleep so late." Jack glanced at the clock on the microwave. "It's not even 7. Most city folks I know would consider this the middle of the night. I'm usually up by 5:30, he explained, transferring another pancake, this one shaped like an elephant, to a plate. "Shop opens at 7. Lily's bus comes at 7:45. He slid the plate across the counter toward Emma. "Hope you like elephants." "Thank you." Emma accepted the plate, oddly touched by the simple gesture. The pancake was surprisingly good, light and fluffy, with a hint of vanilla. This is delicious. Family recipe, Jack said, a note of pride in his voice. My grandmother taught me when I was about Lily's age. Emma tried to imagine her own grandmother teaching anyone to cook. Elizabeth Taylor had been a formidable woman who wore pearls to breakfast and considered kitchens the domain of hired help. Her only legacy to Emma had been the trust fund, now locked away behind her father's manipulations. Dad, can Emma come to my class today? Lily asked suddenly, her mouth still full of pancake. Chew, then talk, Jack reminded her, and Ms. Taylor probably has things to do today. Actually, Emma said, surprising herself, I don't have anything planned, but I wouldn't want to impose on your school. Lily's face lit up. It's career day. Everyone's bringing someone with a cool job. Jamie's dad is a firefighter, and Maria's mom is a nurse, and I was going to bring Dad again, because fixing cars is pretty cool. But he comes every year, and everyone already knows about mechanics. She delivered this information in one breathless rush, looking hopefully between Emma and her father. What exactly is your job? Jack asked, his tone carefully neutral. Emma hesitated. What was her job, really? Her business card read, Director of Community Outreach at the Taylor Foundation, but the position had been created specifically for her, with no real responsibilities beyond attending charity galas and having lunch with potential donors. I work for my family's charitable foundation, she said finally. We provide funding for educational programs mostly. It wasn't a lie, exactly. The Taylor Foundation did fund education initiatives when they weren't serving as tax shelters or public relations vehicles for Taylor Industries. See, that's way more interesting than cars, Lily exclaimed. Jack gave his daughter a mock-wounded look. I thought you said my job was cool. It is, Dad, but you came last year and the year before that and the year before that. Jack looked at Emma. You really don't have to do this. Career Day is basically just 20 kids getting hyper on cupcakes while adults try to make accounting or plumbing sound exciting. I'd be happy to go, Emma said, finding that she meant it. The thought of spending a day alone in this unfamiliar town held little appeal, and Lily's enthusiasm was infectious. If it's allowed, that is. Ms. Peterson won't mind, Lily insisted. She said we could bring anyone with an interesting job. Jack seemed to consider for a moment, then nodded. If you're sure, bus comes in an hour. I'll drop you both off on my way to the shop. 40 minutes later, Emma found herself sitting on the front porch steps beside Lily, waiting for Jack to bring the truck around. The morning was warming up, the earlier mist burned away by strengthening sunshine. Will your boss be mad that you're missing work? Lily asked, adjusting the straps of her purple backpack. Emma smiled wryly. No, my boss is very understanding, especially since he was her father, who had made it clear on numerous occasions that her position was ceremonial rather than essential. The foundation would function perfectly well without her for a day, a week, or, as she was beginning to contemplate, indefinitely. Is it fun giving money to schools and stuff? Lily looked genuinely curious. The giving part is fun, Emma said carefully, seeing how it helps people. The rest, the meetings and paperwork, not so much. Dad says all jobs have boring parts, even fixing cars. He hates doing oil changes, but he says that's what pays for the pancake syrup. The truck appeared around the corner of the house, Jack behind the wheel. As they climbed in, Emma noticed he'd changed into a clean shirt, dark blue, with the Miller's Auto Repair logo embroidered on the pocket. His hair was still damp from a shower, and he smelled faintly of soap and aftershave. All set? He asked as they buckled their seatbelts. Emma's going to tell my class about giving away money, Lily announced. Jack glanced at Emma, a question in his eyes. That's one way to be the most popular career day visitor ever. I'll try to emphasize the importance of hard work and education, Emma assured him, understanding his concern. Not just the free money aspect. The drive to Pine Creek Elementary took less than 10 minutes. The school was a low, sprawling brick building with a colorful playground and a sign announcing Home of the Mighty Pinecones. "I'll pick you both up at 3, Jack said as they pulled up to the drop-off area. "Unless Emma wants me to come back earlier?" "I'll stay for the day," she decided. "When in Pine Creek, do as the Pinecones do." That earned her a genuine laugh from Jack, a warm, rich sound she hadn't heard before. "Just remember, elementary. School lunch is considered cruel and unusual punishment in some countries. I'll bring you back a cupcake," Lily promised solemnly. "The blue ones are the best," he advised, equally serious. As they walked toward the school entrance, Lily slipped her small hand into Emma's with the easy trust of childhood. The simple gesture caught Emma off guard. When was the last time anyone had held her hand without agenda or expectation? Pine Creek Elementary proved to be a revelation. Unlike the austere private academies of Emma's youth, with their strict uniforms and emphasis on decorum, this school hummed with chaotic energy and genuine enthusiasm. Colorful artwork lined the hallways, doors were decorated with student projects, and the sounds of children's laughter echoed through the building. Miss Peterson, a woman in her late 30s with practical clothes and a no-nonsense haircut, welcomed Emma warmly to the third-grade classroom. "We're so pleased you could join us, Ms. Taylor. Lily hasn't stopped talking about our surprise guest since she arrived. Please call me Emma, and thank you for allowing me to participate on such short notice." Ms. Peterson waved away her concerns. "The more diverse careers our students are exposed to, the better. We have parents in trades, medicine, and public service today, but no one from the non-profit sector." The morning passed in a blur of introductions and presentations. A firefighter demonstrated how quickly he could don his gear. A veterinarian brought in a friendly golden retriever for the children to examine with toy stethoscopes. A baker distributed cookies while explaining the science of leavening agents. When Emma's turn came, she found herself unexpectedly nervous. These children didn't care about her family name or connections. They wouldn't be impressed by mentions of charity galas or tax-efficient giving strategies. "Hello," she began, standing before 20 pairs of curious eyes. "My name is Emma Taylor, and I work for a foundation that helps fund educational programs, places where people can learn new things." A hand shot up immediately. "Do you give money to our school?" asked a freckled boy near the front. "Not yet," Emma answered honestly, "but maybe someday." This prompted a flurry of suggestions about what the school needed. New playground equipment, a bigger library, a class pet that wasn't a fish. "What's the best thing about your job?" Ms. Peterson prompted when the children's enthusiasm threatened to derail the presentation entirely. Emma considered the question seriously. Not the parties, or the designer clothes, or the appearance of importance, none of the trappings she'd been taught to value. "The best thing," she said slowly, "is seeing how the right support at the right time can change someone's path completely. It's about creating opportunities that might not have existed otherwise." As she spoke, something shifted inside her. These weren't just platitudes. This was what the foundation could be, should be, if it weren't so entangled with her father's corporate interests. "How do you decide who gets the money?" Lily asked, clearly proud to know the day's special guest. "That's an excellent question," Emma said. "Right now, a committee reviews applications and decides based on certain criteria. But I'm starting to think we should spend more time in the communities we want to help, learning directly from people what they actually need instead of just what we think they need." The rest of the presentation evolved into an impromptu brainstorming session, with children offering increasingly creative ideas about how they would distribute resources if they were in charge. By the end, Emma had a page full of notes, some impractical, a pizza fountain in every school, but others surprisingly insightful, buddy programs between older and younger students, weekend food packs for families who needed them. "You're a natural with kids," Ms. Peterson commented during the lunch break as they watched the children in the cafeteria. "Do you have any of your own?" "No," Emma replied. "My career has been my focus." The words sounded hollow even to her own ears. What career exactly? A position created to keep her occupied and compliant. "Well, you have a gift for it. Lily certainly seems taken with you." Emma glanced across the cafeteria to where Lily sat with her friends, animatedly describing something that had her tablemates giggling. "She's a special child." "She is," Miss Peterson agreed. "Jack has done a remarkable job with her, especially given the circumstances." Emma hesitated, not wanting to pry, but curious about the family that had so unexpectedly taken her in. "It can't be easy, raising a child alone." "No, but if anyone is up to the challenge, it's Jack Miller. This whole town has watched him rebuild his life after Jennifer left. Never complained, never asked for help, though plenty was offered. Just focused on giving Lily stability and love." Ms. Peterson shook her head admiringly. "Men like that aren't common, Ms. Taylor." "No," Emma agreed softly. "I'm beginning to see that." The remainder of the school day passed pleasantly. Emma sat in on a math lesson, helped supervise art class, coming away with specks of glitter embedded in her skin that she suspected would remain for days, and ended the afternoon on the playground, where she was recruited as a judge for what appeared to be a highly competitive hopscotch tournament. By the time the final bell rang, she was exhausted but exhilarated in a way she couldn't remember feeling in years. There was something deeply satisfying about being useful, about engaging with children who cared nothing for her family name or net worth. Jack's truck appeared at the pickup line precisely at 3 o'clock. He looked surprised to see Emma perched on a bench with Lily and 2 other girls, all 4 of them working on friendship bracelets made from colorful strings. "Looks like you survived," he commented as they approached the truck. "Better than survived," Emma replied, holding up her wrist to display a somewhat lopsided bracelet in purple and green. "I've been inducted into the Sacred Order of Best Friends. Forever." "Emma knew all the answers in math," Lily reported as they climbed into the truck, "even the hard ones. And she played hopscotch better than Ms. Peterson." "High praise indeed," Jack said, his eyes meeting Emma's in the rearview mirror. "Should I be worried about my career day champion status?" "Your demonstration of how an engine works using the kids as moving parts is apparently legendary," Emma assured him. "I couldn't possibly compete." "Dad let me be the spark plug," Lily told Emma. "I got to jump up and down and make explosion noises." Jack grinned. "Critical component of any engine demonstration." As they drove back toward the house, Jack explained that he needed to return to the shop for a few more hours. "Mrs. Wilson called while you were at school. She has a spare room opening up tomorrow, if you'd prefer to move to the B&B. "Oh." Emma felt an unexpected pang of disappointment. "That's thoughtful of her." "You're welcome to stay with us," Jack added quickly. "I just wanted you to know you had options." "I'd like to stay," Emma decided, "if you're sure it's not an imposition." "Emma has to stay with us," Lily insisted from the back seat. "She promised to teach me how to make a French braid tonight." Jack raised an eyebrow. "Did she now?" "Well, I might have mentioned I know how to French braid," Emma admitted, and Lily expressed some interest. "Hair care has never been my strong suit," Jack said ruefully, "as Lily will be the first to tell you." "Dad tries," Lily said loyally, "but sometimes I go to school looking like I stuck my finger in an electrical socket." They arrived at the house, and Jack helped them unload before preparing to head back to the shop. "There's leftover stew in the fridge if you get hungry before I'm back. I should be home by 6. "I can cook," Emma offered impulsively, as a thank you for letting me stay. Nothing fancy, but I'm not completely helpless in a kitchen. This wasn't entirely true. Emma's culinary skills were limited to the few dishes. She'd learned in a celebrity chef's cooking class. She'd taken more for social connections than practical knowledge. But how hard could a simple dinner be? Jack seemed surprised but pleased by the offer. You really don't have to. I want to, Emma insisted, unless your refrigerator is protected by some sort of sacred male mechanic code that forbids outsider access. That earned her another of those genuine laughs. No code. Help yourself to whatever you find. Just don't let Lily convince you that chocolate chip cookies are an acceptable main course. After Jack left, Emma and Lily spent the afternoon exploring the farmhouse and its surroundings. Lily proved to be an enthusiastic tour guide, showing Emma the creek that ran along the back of the property. Dad taught me to skip stones here, the ancient apple tree that produced fruit in the fall. They're super sour but good for pies. And the workshop in the detached garage where Jack built furniture in his spare time. He made my bed and my desk, and he's working on a special surprise, but I'm not supposed to know about it. The house itself revealed a family history that Emma found deeply touching. Photographs chronicled generations of Millers. Jack as a gap-toothed child holding fishing tackle beside an older man with the same eyes. A teenage Jack in a baseball uniform. His grandparents on the very porch where they'd sat that morning. It was a visual representation of roots and belonging that made Emma acutely aware of the sterile, curated family photos in her father's penthouse. Professional portraits where everyone wore coordinated outfits and practiced smiles. By 5:00, Emma had assessed the kitchen's contents and formulated a dinner plan. The refrigerator contained a surprising variety of fresh produce. Apparently, Jack believed in feeding his daughter actual vegetables, along with chicken breasts, eggs, and numerous condiments. The pantry held pasta, rice, canned goods, and baking supplies. Does your dad have any allergies or foods he hates? Emma asked Lily, who was sitting at the kitchen table working on her homework. He says he's allergic to kale, but I think he's joking, Lily replied without looking up from her spelling words. He doesn't like olives or those little fish that come in cans. Anchovies, Emma supplied. Yeah, those. He says they're fish that tried to be salty just to spite people. With Lily's input, Emma settled on pasta primavera, a dish she'd actually mastered during her cooking class. She found a cutting board, good knives, and even a decent set of pots and pans. Does your dad cook a lot? She asked, surprised by the well-equipped kitchen. Mostly easy stuff, Lily said, putting down her pencil. Grandma Ellen comes over sometimes and cooks fancy things and puts leftovers in the freezer for us. She says Dad works too hard to cook properly. Grandma Ellen is your dad's mum? No, my mum's mum. But she still comes to see us, even though Mum doesn't. Lily said this matter-of-factly, with none of the bitterness the situation might have warranted. She brings cookies and says I have her nose. Emma glanced at Lily's upturned nose and smiled. She's right about that. As she chopped vegetables and boiled pasta, Emma found herself wondering about the woman who had walked away from this life, from this child. What had she been seeking that seemed worth leaving behind a daughter like Lily and a man like Jack? By the time Jack's truck pulled into the driveway at 6:15, the kitchen smelled of garlic, basil, and roasting chicken. Emma had discovered a partial bottle of white wine in the refrigerator and added a splash to the sauce, along with fresh herbs she'd found growing in pots on the windowsill. Something smells amazing, Jack said as he entered, removing his work boots at the door. His shirt bore smudges of what looked like motor oil, and his hands, though clean, had ingrained stains around the knuckles that no amount of soap would remove, the permanent badge of a mechanic. Emma's making fancy pasta, Lily informed him, with actual vegetables. You don't say vegetables in this house. Revolutionary, Lily giggled. I set the table and everything. Emma showed me how to fold the napkins like triangles. Jack raised an eyebrow at Emma. You're teaching table manners to a kid who considers not using her sleeve as a napkin to be the height of dining etiquette? Nah, start with the fundamentals, Emma replied, stirring the sauce one final time. Next week we tackle which fork to use for the fish course. Bold of you to assume we own more than one kind of fork, Jack retorted, but his eyes were warm with amusement. Dinner was a relaxed affair, with Lily dominating the conversation as she recounted the day's events in elaborate detail. Jack listened attentively, asking questions and seeming genuinely interested in his daughter's activities. The dynamic between them reminded Emma of what she'd missed in her own childhood. Her father had been present physically at mealtimes, but mentally elsewhere, often taking calls or reviewing documents between courses. This is delicious, Jack said, helping himself to a second serving. Where did you learn to cook like this? A class, Emma admitted, though I rarely cook at home. My apartment has the world's smallest kitchen, and it's just easier to order in. In the city, maybe, Jack said. Out here, the nearest food. Delivery is a pizza place that closes at 8, and they don't come this far unless you order at least 3 large pies. How do you manage with the shop and everything? Emma asked. Cooking every night must be exhausting. Jack shrugged. You figure it out. Slow cooker is a lifesaver. We do a lot of meal prep on Sundays, and like Lily probably told you, her grandmother helps out. She mentioned Grandma Ellen. That's unusual, isn't it? After a separation? Jack's expression grew thoughtful. Ellen was against Jennifer leaving from the start, said she was making the biggest mistake of her life. When Jen didn't come back, Ellen just kept showing up here with casseroles and advice. He glanced toward Lily, who was focused on twirling pasta on her fork. Some people understand that family is about more than just DNA or legal documents. After dinner, Jack insisted on handling the dishes, while Emma fulfilled her French braiding promise to Lily. They sat on the porch steps, Lily between Emma's knees as she carefully sectioned the girl's hair. My mom used to wear her hair in a braid like this, Lily said, holding obediently still. I've seen pictures. It's a classic style, Emma replied, her fingers working methodically. My boarding school had strict rules about hair. French braids were one of the few styles allowed. What's boarding school? Lily turned her head, causing Emma to lose her grip on a section of hair. Eyes forward, please. Boarding school is where some children live while they go to school, away from their parents. Lily was quiet for a moment, processing this information. Didn't you miss your dad? A complicated question with an equally complicated answer. Sometimes, Emma said finally, but I made friends there and had teachers who looked after me. I would miss my dad too much, Lily declared, even when he's being strict about bedtime or making me eat Brussels sprouts. From inside the house, the phone rang. A moment later, Jack appeared at the screen door. It's for you, Emma. Someone named Sophia? Surprised, Emma secured Lily's braid with an elastic band before heading inside. She'd given Sophia the miller's number as a backup contact, but hadn't expected her to use it. Sophia, is everything all right? I should be asking you that. Her friend's voice came through the line, tinged with worry. You've been radio silent for over 24 hours in some podunk town. For all I knew, you were starring in your own version of Deliverance. I'm fine, Emma assured her. Better than fine, actually. The car's being repaired and I'm staying with the mechanic and his daughter. You're what? Sophia's voice rose an octave. Emma Taylor, heiress to the Taylor fortune, is shacking up with a small-town grease monkey. Please tell me he at least looks like Chris Hemsworth. Emma glanced toward the kitchen, where Jack was showing Lily how to properly dry a cast-iron skillet. He was certainly attractive, in a weathered, capable way that bore little resemblance to the polished men in her usual social circle. He's just being kind, Emma said quietly, offering a place to stay when the local B&B was full. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure the fact that you look like you stepped off a runway has nothing to do with his hospitality. It's not like that, Emma insisted. He's a single dad, Sophia, a good one. His focus is entirely on his daughter. If you say so. Look, the reason I called, your father's been trying to reach you. He showed up at my apartment last night, asking if I knew where you were. Emma's stomach tightened. What did you tell him? That your car broke down and you were waiting for repairs. I didn't mention the trust fund conversation. He seemed agitated. Said something about an important dinner Friday night that you need to attend with the Harringtons. The Harringtons, of course. Bradley Harrington was the son of one of her father's oldest business associates, Harvard-educated, conventionally handsome, and as devoid of genuine personality as a department store mannequin. Her father had been pushing them together for months. Tell him I'll call when I'm ready, Emma said, a new resolve strengthening her voice. I need some time to think. Em, what's going on? This isn't like you. You never just disappear. Maybe it's time I did, Emma replied softly. Maybe it's time I figured out what I actually want instead of what I've been told to want. After hanging up, Emma remained by the phone for a moment, lost in thought. The conversation had pulled her back into a reality she'd been happy to temporarily escape. Eventually, she would need to confront her father, to make decisions about the trust and her future. But not yet. Not tonight. When she returned to the porch, Lily had been called in for her bath, leaving Jack alone, nursing a beer as he watched the fireflies begin to emerge in the gathering dusk. Everything okay? He asked, offering her the second beer he'd brought out. Emma accepted it gratefully, taking a seat on the step beside him. Just a friend checking in. Apparently my father's looking for me. Should you call him? Jack's tone was neutral, free of judgment. Probably, but I'm not going to, not yet. Jack nodded, taking a sip of his beer. Family can be complicated. That's an understatement. Emma gazed out at the yard, where fireflies were now blinking on and off in a silent, luminous dance. Tell me something good about Pine Creek, something that makes you stay here when you could probably run a garage anywhere. Jack considered the question seriously, his profile thoughtful in the deepening twilight. There's a spot by the creek, about a mile from here. In the spring, these little purple wildflowers carpet the whole bank. Lily and I go there for picnics sometimes. Last year, we saw a family of otters playing in the water. He paused, smiling at the memory. The locals complain about this town. Too small, nothing to do. Everyone knows your business. But on that day, watching those otters with my daughter, hearing her laugh, I couldn't imagine being anywhere else. The simple sincerity of his answer touched something deep in Emma. Her own life, for all its privilege and glamour, had never contained moments like that. Small, perfect instances of connection and contentment. Will you show me someday? The spot with the wildflowers, she asked before she could second-guess herself. Jack turned to look at her, his expression contemplative. Sure, he said finally, though they won't bloom again until next April. The implication hung in the air between them that by next spring, Emma Taylor would be long gone from Pine Creek, back to her real life of charity galas and trust funds, back to the world where men like Jack Miller existed only as service providers, not as equals, certainly not as friends. April's not so far away, Emma said quietly. From inside, Lily's voice called for her father, something about a spider in the bathtub that required immediate attention. Jack stood, setting his beer bottle on the porch rail. Duty calls. The Great Arachnid Relocation Program continues. As he disappeared inside, Emma remained on the porch, watching as more and more fireflies appeared, their brief, bright signals illuminating the growing darkness. She thought about the trust fund waiting for her on her 30th birthday, about the easy path her father had laid out for her. She thought about Jack's hands, capable and strong, guiding his daughter through life with quiet determination. She thought about April wildflowers she might never see, and for the first time in her life, Emma Taylor felt the true weight of choices not yet made. Wednesday morning dawned clear and bright, the kind of perfect early summer day that seemed designed specifically to make Emma question her urban existence. She woke to the sound of Lily practicing piano in the living room, a halting rendition of Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, punctuated by occasional muttered corrections. Emma had spent yesterday afternoon at the shop with Jack, watching him work on her Bentley while she answered emails on her phone and occasionally handed him tools. The radiator hose had arrived, but Jack had discovered additional issues with the cooling system that required more parts. Friday at the earliest, he told her with an apologetic shrug. She'd found herself oddly relieved by the delay. After a quick shower, Emma faced her wardrobe dilemma once again. 3 days in the same clothes was beyond even her flexible standards, regardless of how many times she rinsed her blouse in the bathroom sink. "Problems?" Jack asked, appearing in the hallway just as she was staring forlornly at her mud-stained designer outfit. "Unless dirty couture becomes the next fashion trend, I'm in trouble," Emma admitted. "I don't suppose there's a mall hiding somewhere in Pine Creek?" Jack leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed over his chest. He was wearing a faded black t-shirt that had seen better days, but somehow managed to look good on him anyway. "Nothing that fancy. We've got Mercer's General Store downtown, and there's a Walmart about 20 miles east in Hartford." "Not exactly. Fifth Avenue. At this point, I'd settle for clean clothes from anywhere." She ran a hand through her hair, which she'd managed to wash but had no way to style without her usual array of products. "I have an idea," Jack said after a moment. "Give me half an hour to get Lily off to school, and we'll figure something out." 40 minutes later, Emma found herself in Jack's truck heading not toward town, but deeper into the countryside. The roads became increasingly narrow, winding between fields of corn and wheat that stretched toward distant hills. "I'm not questioning your navigation skills," Emma said, as they turned onto a gravel lane bordered by ancient oak trees. "But this doesn't look like a shopping district." Jack smiled. "Trust me, my sister left some things behind when she moved to Seattle. She's about your size, maybe a little shorter. Not as..." He hesitated, eyes firmly on the road. "Curvy?" Emma supplied, amused by his discomfort. "I was going to say tall," Jack replied, the tips of his ears reddening slightly. "Anyway, my parents' place is just up here. Mom keeps talking about cleaning out Sarah's old room, but never gets around to it. I'm sure she wouldn't mind you borrowing some clothes." The place turned out to be a charming 2-story farmhouse, set amidst mature trees and carefully tended flower beds. White with green shutters and a wraparound porch dotted with rocking chairs. It looked like something from a country living magazine. "Your parents live here?" Emma asked as they pulled into the driveway. "Just my mom now. Dad passed about 5 years ago." Jack's voice held the quiet acceptance of an old grief. "Mom stayed on. Says she'd rather be surrounded by his memory than anything else." As if summoned by their arrival, the front door opened and a woman stepped onto the porch. Slender and silver-haired, with Jack's warm brown eyes and strong chin, she wore jeans and a chambray shirt with the sleeves rolled up, gardening gloves dangling from one hand. "Jackson Miller," she called, using what Emma immediately recognized as his full name mom voice. "Were you planning to drive by without stopping?" Jack grinned as he cut the engine. "Like you wouldn't have spotted my truck from half a mile away." "I heard it turn onto our lane," his mother confirmed. Her gaze shifted to Emma with undisguised curiosity. "And you've brought a friend." Jack made the introductions as they approached the porch. "Mom, this is Emma Taylor. Her car broke down and she's staying with us until it's fixed. Emma, my mother, Patricia Miller." Call me Pat, everyone does, the older woman said, extending a gloved hand before thinking better of it and removing the glove first. Sorry, I was deadheading the roses. It's lovely to meet you, Emma said, taking the offered hand. Your home is beautiful. It keeps me busy, Pat replied, her gaze assessing but not unkind. So you're staying at Jack's place? The spare room, I assume. Mom, Jack warned, a note of exasperation in his voice. Pat waved him off. Oh, hush. I'm not implying anything, just making conversation. She turned back to Emma. Come inside, dear. Jack says you need some clothes. The interior of the Miller family home told the story of generations well lived, comfortable furniture arranged for conversation rather than to impress, bookshelves filled with well-read volumes, photographs chronicling family milestones. It was welcoming in a way that reminded Emma of Jack's house, though larger and more established. Sarah's room is upstairs, first on the left, Pat directed. Closet should still have plenty in it. Help yourself to whatever fits. Jack, make yourself useful and fix that loose board on the back step while I get to know your guest. It wasn't a request so much as a command. Jack rolled his eyes but complied, heading toward what Emma presumed was a toolbox in the mudroom. Men, Pat said with affectionate exasperation once he was out of earshot, always need to be given a task or they just stand around looking decorative. Not that I mind looking at my son. He got his father's best features, but he might as well be useful while he's here. Emma couldn't help but laugh. I've only known him a few days, but he seems like someone who's always doing something useful. True enough, Pat agreed, leading the way upstairs. Jack's never been one to sit still. Even as a boy, he was always taking things apart, figuring out how they worked. Drove his father crazy until they realized they could channel it. By 12, he was rebuilding lawnmower engines. By 16, he was helping his dad with farm equipment. Sarah's room had clearly been preserved in a state of suspended adolescence. Posters of bands from the early 2000s adorned the walls, and trophies for volleyball and debate lined a shelf. The closet, when Pat slid it open, revealed a surprising variety of clothes. Sarah was always more fashion-conscious than practical, Pat explained, pulling out jeans, t-shirts, sundresses. Most of this hasn't been worn in years. She takes a small suitcase when she visits, says none of her old things fit her style anymore. I keep telling her I'll donate it all, but she shrugged. Mothers have a hard time letting go. There was something in her tone that made Emma think she wasn't just talking about clothes. How long has she been in Seattle? 6 years now. Met her husband at college in Chicago, and they moved west for his job in tech. They visit at Christmas, occasionally in the summer, if they can spare the time. Pat selected a sundress in a soft blue pattern. This would look lovely with your coloring. What do you think? The dress was simple but well made, with a fitted bodice and flowing skirt. It's beautiful, Emma said honestly. Are you sure Sarah won't mind? Mind? Honey, she hasn't worn these clothes since the Obama administration. She'll be thrilled. They're getting some use. Pat's shrewd gaze assessed Emma more carefully, though I suspect her styles aren't exactly what you're used to. Emma glanced down at her designer outfit, now an embarrassing reminder of her usual lifestyle. Right now, clean clothes are all I care about. Pat seemed to approve of this answer. Good girl, take whatever you need. There are some sundries in the bathroom across the hall if you need those too. I'll be downstairs when you're ready. Left alone, Emma explored the closet with growing relief. Sarah Miller had indeed been fashion-conscious, if in a more casual way than Emma's usual style. The clothes were of good quality, brands sold in upscale department stores rather than luxury boutiques, but well-designed and classic. She selected several outfits that seemed promising. The blue sundress, a pair of dark jeans that looked like they might fit her longer legs, several t-shirts and blouses, and a light cardigan for cooler evenings. In the adjoining bathroom, she found unused toothbrushes, travel-sized toiletries, and even a modest collection of makeup, all apparently prepared for guests. By the time Emma descended the stairs, dressed in the sundress and a pair of simple sandals she'd found, Jack had returned from his handyman duties and was sitting at the kitchen table with his mother, both nursing cups of coffee. "Much better," Jack commented, looking up as she entered. His expression, briefly appreciative before he schooled it into something more neutral, sent an unexpected flutter through Emma's stomach. "Sarah's things fit you perfectly," Pat declared. "Though you're taller, just as Jack said. The dress is hitting you mid-calf instead of below the knee." "It's perfect," Emma assured her. "I can't thank you enough." "Nonsense. I'm just glad they're being used." Pat pushed a mug of coffee toward her. "Sit and have some coffee before you go. Jack tells me you're from Manhattan. What brings you all the way out to our corner of nowhere?" The question was delivered casually, but Emma sensed the mother's protective instinct behind it. She opted for a simplified version of the truth. "I had a meeting in Hartford about family business. I took the scenic route back and ended up with a broken car and no cell service. Lucky for you, Jack found you," Pat noted. "Some of those back roads can go hours without a car passing." "Very lucky," Emma agreed, meeting Jack's eyes over her coffee cup. "And what do you do in Manhattan, dear, besides have family business?" "In Hartford." Emma hesitated, conscious of Jack watching her. "I work for my family's charitable foundation. We provide funding for educational initiatives primarily." Pat seemed impressed. "A philanthropist. How wonderful. We could certainly use some of that around here. The school's music program is always on the chopping block when budgets get tight." "Mom volunteers with the Pine Creek Arts Council," Jack explained. "They're always fighting to keep arts in the schools." "It's an uphill battle," Pat confirmed. "Small towns like ours are the first to lose funding for anything beyond the basics. Last year, we had to fundraise just to keep the band program going." Emma found herself genuinely interested. "What kind of fundraising do you do? Bake sales, car washes, the usual small-town efforts?" "We did a community talent show last fall that brought in enough to repair some of the instruments, but it's always hand-to-mouth year to year." "Have you applied for foundation grants?" Emma asked. Pat sighed. "We've tried. The problem is, those big city foundations want glossy applications with data and metrics and projected outcomes. We're just trying to make sure kids have a chance to play music and paint pictures." The conversation continued, Pat sharing stories about the town's efforts to preserve its arts programs despite dwindling resources. Emma found herself taking mental notes, seeing opportunities where her foundation, or others like it, could make meaningful differences with relatively small investments. An hour passed in easy conversation before Jack reluctantly announced they should get going. "I've got appointments at the shop this afternoon," he explained, "and I promised Marge I'd look at her tractor before the day's out." Pat insisted on loading them up with fresh strawberries from her garden and a loaf of homemade bread still warm from the oven. "Don't be strangers," she called as they headed toward the truck, a comment that struck Emma as significant given her temporary status in their lives. "Your mother is wonderful," Emma said once they were back on the road. "She likes you," Jack replied. "I could tell." "How?" "She offered you her special occasion coffee, not the regular stuff, and she didn't mention Sarah's ex-boyfriend once, which is practically a miracle." Emma smiled, running her fingers over the soft fabric of the borrowed dress. "I like her, too. And thank you for thinking of this. These clothes are perfect." Jack kept his eyes on the road, but a small smile played at the corner of his mouth. "You look nice. Different, but nice." "Different how?" Emma prompted when he didn't elaborate. He seemed to consider his words carefully. "More accessible, I guess. Yesterday, even with your fancy clothes all muddy, you still looked like Someone who belongs in magazines or behind velvet ropes. Today, you look like someone who might actually live in Pine Creek. The observation was surprisingly perceptive, and Emma found herself wondering which version he preferred, the polished Manhattan heiress or this more casual incarnation. As they approached town, Jack glanced at his watch. "I need to head straight to the shop. Would you like me to drop you at the house or—" "Actually, I'd like to see more of Pine Creek if that's all right. Maybe you could drop me downtown and I could explore a bit." Jack nodded. "Sure, not much to see, but Mercer's has decent sandwiches if you get hungry, and Rose's Cafe makes the best pie in 3 counties. Downtown Pine Creek turned out to be a 4-block stretch of Main Street lined with brick buildings dating from the early 1900s. Small businesses occupied the ground floors: a hardware store, a pharmacy, the Promise General Store, a barber shop, a few restaurants and assorted other establishments that appeared to have been there for decades. Emma spent the morning wandering in and out of shops, charmed by their old-fashioned authenticity and the way each proprietor greeted her with genuine interest rather than calculated customer service. At Mercer's General Store, a vast emporium of practical goods ranging from work boots to canning supplies, the elderly owner insisted on giving her a detailed history of the building while she browsed. "Been in my family since 1904, he proclaimed proudly. "My grandfather built those shelves you're looking at, and my father installed that tin ceiling during the Depression. Not many original family businesses left these days." In a small bookshop tucked between a florist and a law office, Emma discovered a carefully curated selection of titles and a grey cat sleeping on the counter. The owner, a woman in her 60s with spectacular silver dreadlocks, engaged her in a passionate discussion about female authors that ended with Emma purchasing 3 novels she hadn't heard of but now couldn't wait to read. By lunchtime, she found herself at Rose's Cafe, a cozy establishment with red-checked tablecloths and the tantalizing scent of home cooking. The lunch rush was in full swing, the tables filled with a cross-section of Pine Creek society: farmers in work clothes, office workers in business casual, retirees lingering over coffee. "Just one?" asked the waitress, a woman in her 50s with a name tag reading Rose pinned to her ample bosom. "Yes, thank you," Emma replied, following her to a small table by the window. Rose handed her a laminated menu. "You're new in town. Staying with the Millers, I hear." Emma blinked, surprised. "Word travels fast." Rose chuckled. "Honey, in Pine Creek, word doesn't need to travel. It's already there waiting when you arrive. Now, what can I get you? The special today is meatloaf with mashed potatoes and green beans." "That sounds perfect," Emma said, surrendering to the small-town experience. As Rose walked away, Emma heard her name called from across the restaurant. Looking up, she saw Lily's teacher, Ms. Peterson, waving from a table where she sat with another woman. "Join us?" Ms. Peterson asked. "Unless you're waiting for someone?" Emma gathered her belongings and moved to their table, oddly touched by the invitation. "Thank you. I was just watching the town go by." "Emma, this is my sister, Claire Bennett," Ms. Peterson introduced. "She's our town librarian. Claire, this is Emma Taylor, who gave that wonderful presentation to my class yesterday." Claire Bennett shared her sister's practical appearance, but had a more reserved demeanor. "Pleasure to meet you. The children haven't stopped talking about you. Apparently, you've made fractions exciting, which is nothing short of miraculous." "I doubt that," Emma demurred. "But they were a wonderful class." "Lily Miller's been especially enthusiastic," Miss Peterson added with a meaningful glance. "She told everyone you're staying at their house while Jack fixes your car." There was a hint of something in her tone that made Emma feel she was being assessed. "That's right. The B&B was full, and they were kind enough to offer their spare room. The Millers are good people, Claire said, her expression softening. That whole family has been a backbone of this community for generations. Jack's father kept half the farms around here running when equipment broke down and money was tight. And Jack's continuing the tradition, Ms. Peterson added. Did you know he doesn't charge Mrs. Abernathy for oil changes? 93 years. Old and still driving herself to church every Sunday. He says it's a safety issue, making sure her car is maintained, but we all know he just looks out for her. Rose arrived with Emma's lunch, a generous plate of meatloaf and sides that smelled divine. Sharing Jack Miller stories, are we? She asked, setting down the food. I've got a few of those. Last winter when that big storm hit and we lost power. For 3 days, Jack rigged up generators for the nursing home and the community center where folks were sheltering. Hardly slept for 72 hours. Emma listened as the women shared anecdote after anecdote about Jack's quiet generosity and community involvement. The picture they painted was of a man who consistently put others before himself, who saw needs and addressed them without fanfare or expectation of recognition. You seem surprised, Ms. Peterson observed after a particularly touching story about Jack building a ramp for a child with disabilities. Not surprised exactly, Emma clarified, just impressed. In my experience, people who do good things usually make sure everyone knows about it. The 3 local women exchanged knowing glances. That's not how it works here, Claire said simply. In small towns, you help because your neighbors would do the same for you, not for recognition. Speaking of neighbors helping neighbors, Ms. Peterson said, turning the conversation. Claire's organizing this year's summer reading program at the library, and we're short on volunteers. Any chance you'd be interested in helping out while you're in town? We could use someone with your educational background. The invitation caught Emma off guard. Well, my car should be fixed by Friday. Even a day or 2 would be helpful, Claire pressed gently. The children would love it, and it would give you something to do besides wander around our thrilling metropolis. There was something appealing about the idea of being useful, of contributing to this community that had welcomed her so unexpectedly. What would I need to do? Claire's face lit up. Nothing complicated. Help children select books, maybe read to the younger ones. We're trying to keep them engaged with reading over the summer so they don't lose ground before school starts again. I'd love to, Emma decided. Just tell me when and where. By the time lunch concluded, Emma had not only volunteered for the reading program, but also promised to look into whether her foundation might have grant opportunities suitable for small-town arts initiatives. The conversation had stirred something in her, a desire to use her position for more than just attending galas and writing checks to large, established organizations. The afternoon passed pleasantly as Emma continued exploring Pine Creek. She found herself in the town park, a green space with ancient trees, well-maintained play equipment, and a bandstand that looked like it belonged in a Norman Rockwell painting. Settling on a bench, she pulled out her phone, which now had service in the center of town, and began researching small-town grant programs. She was so absorbed in her reading that she didn't notice the approach of a familiar truck until it honked gently, startling her. Jack's vehicle was parked at the curb, his window rolled down as he leaned out. "Thought I might find you here," he called. "Enjoying the metropolis of Pine Creek?" Emma smiled, gathering her purchases as she walked toward him. "It's charming. Everyone's been incredibly friendly." "Small-town hospitality," Jack replied. "Or nosiness, depending on how you look at it. Ready to head back? I picked up Lily from her after-school program, and she's lobbying hard for tacos tonight." Emma glanced into the truck to see Lily in the back seat, waving enthusiastically. "Tacos sound fantastic," she said, climbing in. "I had lunch at Rose's cafe and met some interesting people. Let me guess, Rose told you about the time I fixed her refrigerator at midnight before a catering job." There was resignation in Jack's tone, but also a hint of amusement. "Among other stories," Emma confirmed. "You're quite the local hero, from what I gather." Jack shook his head, clearly uncomfortable with the characterization. "I just do what needs doing. Everyone here does." "Emma," Lily interjected, leaning forward between the seats. "Ms. Peterson says you're going to help at the library, Can I come too? I love the library. They have beanbag chairs and graphic novels, and sometimes they have cookies." "If it's okay with your dad, I'd love the company," Emma replied, glancing at Jack for confirmation. "Fine by me," he agreed. "Claire Bennett runs a good program, keeps the kids reading through summer, which is no small feat." As they drove back to the house, Emma found herself thinking about how quickly she had been folded into the fabric of Pine Creek life. In just a few days, she had gone from stranded stranger to welcomed visitor with obligations and connections. Back at the Miller home, the evening settled into what already felt like a comfortable routine. Lily worked on homework while Jack and Emma prepared dinner together, moving around the kitchen with a synchronicity that belied their short acquaintance. Jack browned beef and chopped onions, while Emma sliced vegetables and warmed tortillas. "You seem deep in thought," Jack observed as they worked side by side at the counter. "I was just thinking about how different this is from my life in New York," Emma replied honestly. "There, I'd either be working late at the foundation or attending some event. Dinner would be catered or ordered in. Certainly not prepared by me. Miss it?" His question was casual, but his eyes were watchful when she glanced up. "Strangely, no. Not yet, anyway." She paused in her chopping. "Today at lunch, I heard so many stories about you, about how you help people without being asked, without expecting anything in return. It made me realize that while my foundation writes big checks, I've never really connected with the people we're supposed to be helping." Jack was quiet for a moment, focusing on stirring the meat. It's different when you know people's names, when you see them at the grocery store or the gas station. Hard to ignore needs when they have familiar faces. "I think that's what's missing in my work," Emma said softly. "The connection, the reality of people's lives." Dinner was a lively affair, with Lily recounting her day in vivid detail and demonstrating her taco-eating technique, which seemed designed primarily to maximize mess. Afterward, as Jack supervised Lily's bath, Emma found herself alone on the back porch, watching as the sun set over the distant hills. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, a text from her father. "Where are you? Call immediately. Harrington's expecting us Friday." The demand, so typical of Richard Taylor's communication style, sent a wave of resentment through Emma. No concern for her well-being, no question about when her car would be fixed. Just an expectation of compliance with his plans. "Everything okay?" Jack's voice from the doorway startled her. Emma tucked her phone away. "My father," she explained, "reminding me of a dinner I'm supposed to attend on Friday with the son of one of his business associates." "Ah," Jack leaned against the doorframe. "Sounds important." "It's not," Emma said flatly. "It's just another attempt to push me toward an appropriate marriage." The words hung in the air between them, more revealing than she had intended. Jack's expression remained neutral, but his eyes were questioning. "My grandmother left me a trust fund," Emma found herself explaining. "I can access it when I turn 30 next year, or if I get married before then. My father would prefer the latter, especially if it's to someone within his circle of influence." Understanding dawned on Jack's face. "And that's what had you so upset when your car broke down? You just found out about this condition?" Emma nodded. "All these years, I thought I was working at the foundation because he valued my input. Turns out, I was just being kept busy and compliant until he could arrange a suitable match." The bitterness in her voice surprised even her. Jack moved to sit beside her on the porch steps. "That's manipulative." "That's my father," Emma agreed. Everything is a transaction to him, even his own daughter. They sat in silence for a while, the emerging stars a silent audience to her confession. "So, what will you do?" Jack asked finally. "About Friday. Emma looked out at the peaceful backyard, at the fireflies beginning their nightly dance among the shadows. The old Emma would already be on her way back to New York, ready to play her part in the family drama. But I'm not sure that's who I am anymore." She turned to him, suddenly decisive. "If the car's ready, I'll go back on Friday. But not for dinner with the Harringtons. I need to confront my father, to take control of my own life." Jack studied her face in the fading light. "For what it's worth, I think that's the right call. Even though you'll lose your house guest." The question was meant to be teasing, but something in her voice betrayed a deeper uncertainty. Jack's smile was soft, almost wistful. "Pine Creek will feel different without you, that's for sure. Lily's already planning all the things she wants to show you this weekend." "I'll have to disappoint her," Emma said, a pang of genuine regret in her chest. "She's tougher than she looks," Jack assured her, "and she understands about obligations. We had a long talk about responsibilities when her mother left." The mention of Lily's mother brought another question to Emma's mind. "Can I ask, what happened? Why did she leave?" Jack was quiet for so long that Emma thought he might not answer. When he did, his voice was measured, as if he'd told the story many times, but it still required careful handling. "Jennifer and I were high school sweethearts," he began. "Married young, had Lily right away. She always had bigger dreams than Pine Creek could contain. Wanted to travel, live in cities, experience a different kind of life. For a while, she tried to make it work here, but eventually the call of something more became too strong to ignore." He paused, his profile sharp against the darkening sky. "One day, she sat me down and said she was suffocating, that she loved Lily but couldn't be the mother she needed while dying inside a little each day. So she left," Emma said softly. Jack nodded, packed 2 suitcases and moved to Chicago. She calls Lily on birthdays and Christmas, sends postcards from her travels. "I don't think she's a bad person, Emma. Just someone who made the wrong choice young and couldn't bear the consequences." The honesty in his account moved her. There was pain there, certainly, but no bitterness, no attempt to villainize the woman who had left him to raise their child alone. "How did you do it?" Emma asked. "Raise Lily on your own, run the business, keep going?" Jack shrugged, the gesture somehow encompassing both the difficulty and simplicity of his choice. "One day at a time. What else could I do? Lily needed stability, needed to know that at least one parent would always put her first. The rest, the business, the house, my own feelings, those things just had to fall in line around that core truth." In that moment, watching Jack Miller's face as he spoke about his unwavering commitment to his daughter, Emma felt something shift inside her. Here was a man who had embraced responsibility not as a burden, but as a purpose, who had transformed personal heartbreak into a foundation for a child's security. "You're an extraordinary father," she said quietly. Jack looked slightly embarrassed but pleased. "I'm just doing my best, like everyone else." But that was just it, Emma thought, as they sat together in companionable silence. Not everyone did. Their best. Her own father certainly hadn't. Richard Taylor had seen parenthood as an extension of his business interests, his daughter as an asset to be managed and eventually leveraged. As the stars emerged fully overhead, Emma made a silent promise to herself. Whatever happened when she returned to New York, whatever confrontation awaited with her father, she would carry the lessons of Pine Creek with her. The value of community, the dignity of work done with care, and the quiet integrity of a man who simply did what needed doing, day after day, without expectation of reward or recognition. In 3 days, a broken car had led her to a place where everything broken inside her had begun to heal. And for that, She would be forever grateful to Jack Miller and his ramshackle blue pickup truck that had stopped on a rainy afternoon to help a stranded stranger. Thursday morning brought a gentle summer rain that pattered against the windows and turned the world outside into a watercolor painting of greens and grays. Emma woke to the comforting sound, stretching beneath the handmade quilt that had become familiar in just a few nights. Down the hall, she could hear Lily's animated chatter and Jack's deeper responses as they prepared for their day. Emma had spent yesterday at the town library, helping Claire Bennett with the summer reading program. What had begun as a casual volunteer opportunity had evolved into something unexpectedly fulfilling. She'd read stories to a circle of wide-eyed 5-year-olds, helped middle schoolers find books that might capture their interest, and worked with high school volunteers to create displays promoting literacy. By day's end, she'd been pleasantly exhausted in a way that her foundation work never left her, the satisfaction of direct impact rather than abstract philanthropy. Dressing in borrowed jeans and a soft green blouse from Sarah Miller's closet, Emma contemplated the day ahead. Jack had mentioned her car would likely be ready tomorrow, which meant her time in Pine Creek was rapidly drawing to a close. The thought left her with a confusing mix of emotions. Resolve about confronting her father, balanced against a strange reluctance to leave this place that had so quickly come to feel like somewhere she belonged. When she entered the kitchen, Jack was at the stove, flipping what appeared to be French toast, while Lily sat at the table organizing her backpack with unusual concentration. "Morning," Jack greeted, glancing up with a smile that reached his eyes in a way Emma was beginning to anticipate. "Sleep okay?" "Perfectly," Emma replied, helping herself to coffee from the pot. "Something smells amazing." "Thursday is French Toast Day," Lily informed her without looking up from her task. "And I'm bringing extra strawberry jam for Emma because Claire said you're helping at the library again today." "Am I?" Emma asked, catching Jack's eye with amusement. He shrugged, the spatula pausing mid-flip. "Claire called last night after you went to bed. Apparently, you're the best thing to happen to the summer reading program since they got those beanbag chairs. She asked if you'd help again today since—" He hesitated. "Since you're leaving tomorrow." The words hung in the air, weighted, with unspoken implications. Emma focused on adding cream to her coffee, needing a moment to compose her thoughts. "I'd be happy to help again," she said finally. "It was surprisingly fun, though I should probably stop by the shop at some point to settle up for my car." "No rush," Jack said, transferring perfect golden slices to plates. "We can handle that later." Breakfast was a comfortable affair despite the undercurrent of impending departure. Lily dominated the conversation with elaborate plans for a wildlife research project her class was starting, complete with a bird-watching journal she planned to maintain throughout the summer. "Ms. Peterson says if I document 10 different species, I get a special certificate," she explained, between bites of syrup-drenched French toast. "Dad already helped me build a birdhouse. We're going to put it up this weekend." "That sounds wonderful," Emma said, trying not to think about how she wouldn't be there to see it installed. "What kind of birds do you hope to attract?" This launched Lily into a detailed catalogue of local bird species, complete with enthusiastic sound effects that had Jack wincing and Emma struggling not to laugh. The ordinariness of the moment, a family breakfast on a rainy morning, struck Emma with unexpected poignancy. This simple scene represented everything her childhood had lacked: warmth, genuine interest, unhurried togetherness. After Jack and Lily departed for school and work, Emma spent a quiet hour on the porch, watching the rain soften to a gentle mist. She found herself mentally cataloging details she wanted to remember: the way morning light filtered through the oak tree in the front yard, the distinct creak of the third porch step, the scent of coffee and cinnamon that seemed permanently embedded in the kitchen. Her phone buzzed with an incoming call. Sophia again. Please tell me you're still alive and not starring in some backwoods horror movie, her friend said by way of greeting. Emma laughed. Very much alive and decidedly unhorrified. Pine Creek is actually lovely. And the mechanic? Still ruggedly handsome and suspiciously perfect. Jack is... Emma paused, uncertain how to encapsulate the man she'd come to know. He's exactly who he appears to be, kind, hard-working, devoted to his daughter. So not secretly an axe murderer. Good to know. Sophia's tone softened. You sound different, Em. Calmer somehow. I feel different, Emma admitted. Being here, away from everything, from my father's expectations, from the Foundation's superficial charity work, from the entire Manhattan social scene, it's been clarifying. Clarifying how? Emma watched a robin hop across the rain-damp lawn, searching for worms. I've been living someone else's version of my life, playing a role in my father's grand plan. I don't want that anymore. And what do you want? Sophia's question was gentle but pointed, to make an actual difference, to connect with people directly, not just through writing checks, to build something that matters. Emma took a breath. The car should be ready tomorrow. I'm coming back to New York, but not for dinner with the Harringtons. I'm going to confront my father about the trust, about everything. Sophia was quiet for a moment. I'm proud of you, Em. It's about time you stood up to Richard Taylor, but dear mate, are you sure you want to leave this magical small town of yours? You sound happier there than I've heard you in years. The question landed with surprising weight. I have responsibilities, Sophia, decisions to make about my future. I can't hide in Pine Creek forever. Sophia hummed non-committally. Well, when you get back, we're having an extremely alcoholic brunch where you tell me everything about this Jack person who has clearly made an impression. After promising to call when she reached Manhattan, Emma ended the call and prepared to head to the library. The rain had stopped, leaving behind puddles that reflected the emerging sunlight and a freshness in the air that made walking through town a pleasure. Pine Creek's small library occupied a historic building of red brick and arched windows that had originally served as the town's post office. Inside, the space had been thoughtfully adapted with reading nooks, computer stations, and child-sized furniture in the children's section. Claire greeted Emma warmly, clearly delighted by her return. We've got the middle school book club at 10. Story time for preschoolers at 11, and the teen volunteer meeting at 1, she explained, handing Emma a schedule. Feel free to join in wherever you're comfortable. The day passed in a blur of conversations about books, animated readings of picture stories, and helping young readers find their next adventure. Emma surprised herself with how easily she connected with children of all ages, how naturally she could engage their curiosity and enthusiasm. During a quiet moment, while the middle schoolers were working on book review projects, Claire joined Emma at the reference desk. You have quite a gift with children, she observed. They respond to you beautifully. It's the novelty factor. Emma demurred. A new face is always exciting. Claire shook her head. No, it's more than that. You listen to them, really listen, and take their interests seriously. That's rarer than you might think. She hesitated, then added, Jack mentioned your car will be ready tomorrow. Yes, Emma confirmed, organizing a stack of returned books. I need to get back to New York. Of course. Claire seemed to choose her next words carefully. Jack, Miller is one of the finest men I know, Emma. He doesn't let people in easily, not since Jennifer left. But he's let you in, he and Lily both. Emma felt a flush rise to her cheeks. They've been incredibly kind to a stranded stranger. It's more than kindness, Claire said gently. I've known Jack since he was a boy setting off the fire alarm. In this very building. I've never seen him look at anyone the way he looks at you. Before Emma could formulate a response, a group of preschoolers arrived with their parents for story time, effectively ending the conversation. But Claire's words echoed in Emma's mind throughout the remainder of the day, adding another layer of complexity to her already conflicted feelings about leaving. By mid-afternoon, dark clouds had gathered again, and thunder rumbled in the distance. As Emma helped the last of the teen volunteers organize a display of summer reading recommendations, Claire approached with concern etched on her face. "There's a severe thunderstorm warning for the county," she announced. "I'm closing the library early so everyone can get home safely before it hits. Do you need a ride? I'd be happy to drop you at Jack's place." "I'll be fine walking," Emma assured her. "It's not far and I don't mind a little rain." Claire looked unconvinced but didn't press the issue. "Well, take this at least," she said, retrieving an umbrella from behind the desk. "And thank you again for all your help. The children adored you." Outside, the air had that charged quality that precedes a significant storm, heavy with moisture and electricity. Emma quickened her pace, but still found herself only halfway to the Miller house when the skies opened. The rain came suddenly and with stunning force, rendering Claire's umbrella almost useless against the deluge. Within minutes, Emma was soaked despite her best efforts. The borrowed blouse clung to her skin, and her hair hung in dripping tendrils around her face. Lightning flashed overhead, followed almost immediately by a crack of thunder that seemed to shake the ground beneath her feet. She was considering seeking shelter in a nearby porch when a familiar blue pickup truck appeared through the curtain of rain, pulling alongside her with a splash. Jack leaned across to push open the passenger door. "Get in," he called over the storm's fury, "before you drown standing up." Emma didn't need to be told twice. She collapsed into the passenger seat, bringing a substantial amount of rainwater with her. "Sorry about your seats," she said, attempting to wring out her hair. Jack's expression was a mix of concern and amusement. "The trucks survived worse. Why were you walking in this? Claire would have driven you." "I didn't think it would get this bad so quickly," Emma admitted, accepting the clean shop towel he offered. "How did you know I was out here?" Claire called the shop," Jack explained, navigating carefully through the rain-slicked streets. "Said you'd insisted on walking home despite the storm warning. I figured I'd better come find you before you got blown to Oz." The use of the key word home in reference to his house didn't escape Emma's notice. It felt natural, somehow, as if the Miller residence had indeed become a kind of home to her in the few days she'd spent there. "My hero," she said lightly, trying to mask the genuine gratitude she felt. "Twice in 1 week." Jack glanced at her, his expression softening. "Just doing what needs doing." The storm intensified as they drove, rain hammering against the truck with percussive force and wind bending tree branches to impossible angles. By the time they reached the house, streams of water were coursing down the driveway, and thunder was cracking directly overhead. "Make a run for it on 3, Jack suggested, eyeing the distance to the porch. 1, 2, 3. They dashed from the truck to the house, arriving on the porch breathless and laughing despite being further drenched in the short sprint. Jack fumbled with the keys, his fingers slippery with rain, while Emma attempted to squeeze water from her sodden clothes. "Where's Lily?" she asked as they finally stumbled inside. "Mom picked her up from school," Jack explained, kicking off his boots. "Takes her to piano lessons on Thursdays. They'll wait out the storm at Mom's place." The sudden realization that they were alone in the house, both soaking wet and breathless, created an unexpected tension. Emma became acutely aware of how her borrowed blouse clung to her body, how Jack's t-shirt revealed the contours of his shoulders and chest. "You should change before you catch cold," Jack said, his voice oddly constrained. "I'll grab some towels." In the upstairs bathroom, Emma peeled off the wet clothes and wrapped herself in the large, fluffy towel Jack had provided. The borrowed wardrobe presented limited options for dry attire. Just a simple sundress she hadn't worn yet, and a cardigan that would be too warm for the humid day. She dressed quickly, using another towel to blot the worst of the moisture from her hair. When she descended the stairs, she found Jack in the kitchen, also changed into dry clothes, worn jeans and a faded blue t-shirt that had seen better days, but somehow suited him perfectly. He was making what appeared to be hot chocolate, the rich scent of cocoa filling the small space. Lily's rule, he explained, noticing her watching. Hot chocolate during thunderstorms. Tradition. Even when she's not here? Emma asked, leaning against the counter. Jack shrugged, a small smile playing at the corners of his mouth. Some traditions are worth maintaining regardless. Besides, you look like you could use warming up. He handed her a steaming mug, their fingers brushing in the exchange. The small contact sent a disproportionate warmth through Emma's body, and she found herself studying the contents of her mug to avoid meeting his eyes. "I called the parts supplier while you were changing," Jack said after a moment. "They'll have the last component for your car first thing tomorrow morning. Should have you road ready by noon." "That's good," Emma replied, the words feeling inadequate. "I appreciate all your work on it." "Just doing my job," Jack said, though. His tone suggested it had become something more than a simple business transaction. They moved to the living room, settling on opposite ends of the worn but comfortable sofa as the storm continued its assault outside. The old house creaked and sighed around them, but felt solid, secure, a bulwark against the elements that had stood for generations and would stand for many more. "Your home is special," Emma said, breaking a silence that had stretched between them. "It has character, history." "It needs a new roof and updated wiring," Jack replied with a wry smile. But yeah, it's got good bones, been in the family since my grandparents' time." "You never thought about leaving, like Jennifer did?" The question slipped out before Emma could reconsider its potential indelicacy. If Jack was offended, he didn't show it. "Thought about it," he admitted. "After high school, I had a partial scholarship to an engineering program at State College. Had dreams of designing cars, not just fixing them. What happened? Dad had his first heart attack. Someone needed to take over the shop while he recovered. Then Jennifer got pregnant with Lily, and life just took a different turn." There was no bitterness in his voice, only acceptance. "Can't say I regret it, though. Built a good life here, a real one." "As opposed to a fake one?" Emma asked, curious about his choice of words. Jack considered his response, turning the mug between his hands. "I watch those reality shows sometimes when Lily's at sleepovers and I've got the house to myself. People in big cities running around to parties and restaurants wearing clothes that cost more than my truck, talking about finding themselves while never actually doing anything real." He glanced up, suddenly concerned. "No offense to your life in New York. I'm sure it's different than TV shows." Emma laughed softly. "Less different than you might imagine, unfortunately. There's a lot of performance to it. People presenting the lives they think they should have, rather than building the ones they truly want." "And what do you truly want, Emma Taylor?" Jack asked, his gaze steady and searching. The question hung between them, weighted with possibilities. Outside, lightning illuminated the room in a brief, brilliant flash, followed by a thunderclap that seemed to underscore the significance of the moment. "I'm still figuring that out," Emma admitted, "but I know it's not what my father has planned for me. It's not a strategic marriage or running a foundation that exists primarily as a tax shelter. It's something realer." "Real can be overrated," Jack said, though his tone suggested otherwise. "Real means leaky roofs and cars that break down and ex-wives who decide small-town life isn't enough. Real means sitting up all night with a sick child or working double shifts to make ends meet. But it also means French toast on Thursdays and hot chocolate during thunderstorms," Emma countered. "It means building birdhouses with your daughter and being the kind of person the whole town speaks about with genuine respect. It means making a difference that you can actually see in people's lives. Jack studied her face, something unreadable in his expression. You've changed since I found you standing by your car in the rain. I've remembered who I wanted to be before my father's expectations became my reality, Emma corrected. There's a difference. The power chose that moment to flicker and fail, plunging the house into premature dusk. Jack set his mug aside and rose to retrieve flashlights from a kitchen drawer, returning to find Emma gazing out the window at the storm-darkened landscape. It might be out for a while, he said, handing her a flashlight. The old grid doesn't hold up well to storms like this. I don't mind, Emma replied. It's peaceful, actually. They spent the next hour in comfortable conversation, sharing stories from their vastly different lives. Emma's boarding school, escapades and gallery openings, in contrast to Jack's tales of small-town adventures and raising a spirited daughter. Despite the differences in their backgrounds, Emma was struck by how easily they connected, how Jack's intelligence and quiet wisdom matched anything she'd encountered in supposedly more sophisticated circles. As evening approached and the storm began to wane, Jack's phone rang. It was Patricia, explaining that the roads to their neighborhood were temporarily blocked by fallen trees and emergency crews were working to clear them. Mom and Lily are going to stay at her place tonight, Jack reported after ending the call. Mom says not to worry. They've got board games and microwave popcorn, and Lily is thrilled about the impromptu sleepover. Will they be okay? Emma asked, concerned. They'll be fine. Mom's place is on the town's backup generator circuit because of her medical alert system. They've got power, heat, everything they need. Jack hesitated. I should probably see what I can pull together for dinner. Options might be limited without electricity. They settled on sandwiches made from the contents of the still-cold refrigerator, eating by candlelight at the kitchen table. The intimacy of the setting, flickering flames casting soft shadows across their faces, the continuing rumble of distant thunder, the house quiet around them, created an atmosphere that felt removed from ordinary time. Last meal in Pine Creek? Jack observed as they finished eating. Any regrets about your unexpected detour? Emma considered the question seriously. Not regrets, no. The opposite, actually. Breaking down here might be the best thing that's happened to me in years. Car trouble as divine intervention? Jack suggested with a hint of amusement. That's good for my business model. I'm serious, Emma insisted. I needed perspective, and Pine Creek gave me that. You gave me that. Jack's expression sobered. I didn't do anything special, Emma. You did, though. You showed me what it looks like when someone lives authentically, when they prioritize what truly matters. Family, community, integrity, over status or wealth. You helped me see what's been missing in my life. In the candlelight, Jack's face was a study in shadows and warm plains, his eyes reflecting the small flames as he considered her words. And what will you do with that insight when you go back to New York? It was the question Emma had been asking herself since she'd made the decision to return. Start by confronting my father about the trust and his manipulation. After that, I'm not entirely sure. Reimagine the foundation, maybe. Focus it on communities like this one that get overlooked by traditional philanthropy. Find ways to make a difference that feels real, not just theoretical. Jack nodded slowly. You could do a lot of good with resources like yours if they're directed with genuine understanding of what people actually need. That's just it, Emma said, leaning forward slightly. Before this week, I had no idea what places like Pine Creek might need. I saw small towns as quaint backdrops in movies, not as living communities with their own challenges and strengths. And now I see the value in what exists here, the connections, the mutual support, the direct impact people have on each other's lives. But I also see where resources are lacking. In the schools, the library, the infrastructure. I understand better how to help without imposing outside notions of what progress should look like." Jack's smile was warm with approval. "You really have been paying attention." "I've had a good teacher," Emma replied softly. The candlelight between them seemed to intensify, creating a moment suspended outside the normal flow of time. Jack's gaze held hers, and Emma found herself acutely aware of his presence across the table. The strength in his hands, the quiet intelligence in his eyes, the subtle scent of soap and something uniquely him. The moment stretched, taut with unspoken possibility, until a sudden banging from the front of the house startled them both. Jack rose quickly, flashlight in hand, and moved to investigate. Emma followed, curious and slightly concerned. At the front door, they found Patricia Miller, windblown but determined, with Lily beside her in pink rain boots and a yellow slicker. "Roads cleared faster than expected," Patricia announced, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. And this one was worried about her goldfish, convinced poor Spark would be traumatized by the thunder without her emotional support. "Mom," Jack began, clearly surprised by their arrival, "you didn't need to drive back in this weather." "Nonsense. Storms mostly passed, just some lingering drizzle. Besides, Lily was adamant, and you know how she gets when she sets her mind on something." Patricia's gaze moved to Emma, taking in the scene. The candlelit kitchen visible beyond, the proximity in which she and Jack stood. A knowing expression crossed her face. "We're not interrupting anything, are we?" "Just dinner," Jack said quickly. "Power's still out." "Spark was scared," Lily declared, removing her rain gear and heading immediately toward her bedroom. "I could tell because I'm psychically connected to him." "Psychically connected to a goldfish," Patricia repeated with amused skepticism, following her granddaughter. "I need to hear more about this development." Left momentarily alone in the hallway, Emma and Jack exchanged glances that contained equal parts regret and amusement. "Timing," Jack murmured, rubbing the back of his neck. "Mum's always had a gift for it." "It's fine," Emma assured him, though she felt a distinct sense of lost opportunity. "I should get some rest anyway. Tomorrow's a big day." Jack nodded, his expression carefully neutral. "Right, New York awaits." That night, as Emma lay in the spare bedroom listening to the occasional rumble of distant thunder, she found herself replaying the interrupted moment in the kitchen. What might have happened if Patricia and Lily hadn't arrived? Would Jack have reached across the table to take her hand? Would she have found the courage to express the confused tangle of feelings that had developed over these few short days? More importantly, what did it matter? Tomorrow she would return to New York, to the confrontation with her father, to decisions about her future that couldn't include a small-town mechanic with roots as deep as the old oak tree in his front yard. Their worlds were too different, their paths too divergent. Yet as sleep finally claimed her, Emma's dreams were filled not with Manhattan penthouses or charity galas, but with thunderstorms and candlelight, and the face of a man who had shown her what it meant to live with purpose and integrity. In the morning, she would leave Pine Creek, but she suspected a part of her heart would remain behind. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.